everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Art Study of You. I am your host, Cameron Gilmore. We have another banger of a show coming up. I am super excited because we're going to dive into a world that I honestly just am not very familiar with, the yoga world, the yoga mindset. We're going to talk a lot about this. My guest today, Jody Capdeboscq, is going to give us some very good insight on who she is, why yoga, how yoga has helped her grow throughout her life. But let me give you a little bit of back history on why Jody and why we chose her. She's the owner of YogaSix Overland Park. She was instructor at YogaSix St. Louis. She's a mother of three. She's an entrepreneur, and she has got a plethora of knowledge on how to just keep ourselves grounded, keep ourselves centered, and allow us to feel joy and peace in this life. And she's going to talk about this living mindset. I cannot wait for this mindset growth. It's going to be amazing. Jody, please take about 5 to 7 minutes, kind of introduce who you are, where'd you grow up, kind of give us a little bit of back history, but more important, let's talk about your why.
Yeah, you bet. So I live in St. Louis, Missouri, born and raised in a suburb called Kirkwood, Missouri. And I'm one of three girls, 2 sisters, including an identical twin sister. And, grew up in a Catholic family. I have parents who divorced when I was in middle school, and then went on to finish high school, went on to college, worked in the field of marketing and public relations for about 10 years, and then had babies and stayed at home for a while. And from there, kind of started dipping my toe into the world of fitness. I've always been a runner and always enjoyed working out. And so I worked on getting my training for that so that I could teach fitness. And then from there, that evolved into getting certified to teach yoga. And the more I learned about it, the more I couldn't get enough of it. I just wanted to keep reading as much as I could, meeting as many people in the field as I could. And that's really what led me to open this yoga studio. So it just keeps evolving. My why is pretty simple. I choose to kind of live life with a glass half full perspective versus a glass half empty perspective. I think that for me, I learned it's much easier living life that way. It's a lot less chaotic. It feels less exhausting to sort of go with the flow and look at the positives versus the negatives. And look, I live a busy life, and bad things happen and chaotic days happen for me, but I really do try to kind of look at what is going my way and what is going well for me versus taking a negative point of view and questioning why is this happening to me. I just kind of always am looking at that glass half full.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I want to get right into this because you said something very unique. You study, guys, listen, she just doesn't study yoga like in fitness. Like, this is a lifestyle. This is a mindset. Okay. She said something about her life. I wanted to dive into this a little bit. So it's called the off the mat mindset. Now, I know you didn't come up with this idea. I'm going to say you did because I'm the host and I can say what I want. Not really, but this aftermath mindset. Please take us into how this has transformed. First, where did you learn about this, and how have you applied it into not only your life, but then the lives of those that you infect every day?
Yeah, for sure. So, when I first stepped on a yoga mat over 10 years ago, I was just there for the exercise, to be honest with you. I just wanted to move my body. And I was not necessarily paying attention to all of the chatter going on from the instructor. I wasn't listening to the breath cues. I wasn't listening to, the whole philosophy behind yoga. I just was in there to sweat and move my body. And it took probably a good year before I even began noticing this concept of yoga, and that it really had nothing to do with how flexible I was or how strong I physically was. And so I started kind of diving into that more, and my yoga practice started feeling more like an experience, not just physical, but a spiritual experience for me and an emotional experience for me. And so I started kind of learning these philosophies that I would hear on my yoga mat and taking them from the physical practice of yoga and applying them off the mat in my real life. So all of these concepts we hear about in yoga, finding balance and being compassionate and being mindful and staying present, all of these things we learn about while we're practicing on our yoga mats are all very applicable to our lives outside of the yoga studio. Being finding balance in our work life, in our home life, being compassionate towards ourselves, being compassionate towards others. Are we speaking kindly to ourselves? Are we speaking kindly to others? Being mindful and staying in the present moment has probably been the biggest light bulb moment for me in terms of taking my yoga practice off the mat. Learning to use my breath, which we call pranayama in yoga. It is your life force. It is your best tool that you can possibly use. And I think we often underestimate the power of our breath, but it is the true tool for me in terms of staying present and in the moment. So always coming back to that. If I feel my mind racing, in my real life, my mind starts wandering and it's racing. I'm human, that happens. But bringing my focus back to the present moment and noticing what's real right now versus what ifs I'm imagining in my mind that haven't happened yet, and really being grateful in the moment. There's nothing like gratitude that will help you to be present and really look around you and see what's happening right now and what do I have right now to be grateful for, instead of letting your mind wander down the road. So all of those principles are so applicable, both in the physical sense, you're moving your body, but also taking them off the mat.
Okay. So hold on real quick, because you what you've done is basically given us a master class over the last 2 minutes. So guys, rewind this, because we are going to dive into some principles that she has discussed. Look, as ignorant as I am about yoga, I honestly thought really yoga was go stretch, be like, Mr. Not Mr. Incredible, but I forget his wife's name, right? All you're doing is stretching, and it's like you're bending, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. Or I can sit in a hot room with everybody else and trying to bend, but that's not the case.
No.
What you're saying is that it's this mind shift, shift that you can be able to control. So I want you to touch on 2 points. The first point is being nice to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Take us down that principle of how does yoga, or how are these principles not force you, but allow you to build tools to be nice to yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So, I will say to my students often as we're going through a yoga sequence, and I can tell that maybe this is a pose or posture that is difficult for them or challenging for them. And I can see it on their faces, and I can see it, they're holding their breath. And I'll often say to them, are you speaking kindly to yourself in this posture? Meaning, are you saying, oh, I can't balance. I have the worst balance. I have no flexibility. I have no strength to hold myself up in this posture. Oh, I can't do this, but the person next to me is doing it beautifully. How are you talking to yourself? Are you talking to yourself kindly? Are you thanking your body for what it can do for you? Are you thanking your body for being able to even walk yourself into the studio and stand on your mat? So how are you first, treating yourself? Are you being a friend to yourself? Are you being critical to yourself? Or are you recognizing your strengths? Are you honoring both your moments of maybe where you're feeling challenged, but also honoring the moments where you feel strong and capable? So having that conversation first with yourself, almost as if you're speaking to a friend or a loved one. You would never speak to a friend or a loved one the way that we often speak to ourselves. So it starts there, and just finding that compassion for yourself, and then realizing you're capable of so much more than you think that you are, and accepting and really honoring where you're at each and every day, each and every time you step on that yoga mat. Where are you at today? Honor it. Maybe you're not at a 10 with energy. Maybe you're at a 5. Honor that. So just honoring where you're at and accepting it and noticing it without judging it or responding to it in a negative way.
Holy crap. Wow. All that. all
Yeah.
that is taught in a place where you can feel safe. Because listen, from what I'm taking from this is when you enter the mat, it's almost like, hey, this truly is. I know as cliche as it sounds, this is a judgment free.
Yeah.
No, this is a leave your ego at the door type zone, because we are all trying to get better. We're all trying to do things to improve our lives. But first and foremost, it's about accepting where we are in our journey at this point, and knowing that if we just are stop being critical of who we are and where I am in this moment, and allow myself to grow into a new person, grow myself better than where I am today.
Yes.
Every personal development coach is going to tell you that's the starting point.
For sure. I hear so often from new yoga students, "Oh, I'm not going to do very well at this. I'm not flexible at all." And I always say, great. The amazing thing about yoga is you don't have to be flexible. Flexible in your mind, perhaps, and open in your heart. But I don't care if you can do a headstand. I don't care if you can touch your nose to your knee. That has nothing to do with this practice. I just want you showing up here with an open heart and an open mind, and accepting where your starting point is today. And maybe that starting point is different today than it is tomorrow, but honor it today. Where are you at right in this moment? Don't waste this moment, and honor it. You'll never have this exact moment again, right? You'll never have this exact moment again and this exact moment again. So honor it where you're at. Stop wishing for it to be different. Stop wishing for things to change. Here's where you're at, and be okay with it.
Wow. Yeah, we could stop. Literally, we could be
Yeah.
done with this interview, and everyone could go and listen to the notes, look themselves in the mirror and say, stop being critical.
Yeah.
Like, literally stop with this. The comparison game is so
Yeah.
horrific. And I say that because I do that a lot.
Yeah. We
So
all do.
okay, so now we're going to, the second point that I want you to touch on is this breathing. I hear so much
Yes.
about breathing. I talked to at a lady on, her name was Martha Gleason, and she's a voice coach, and she does talks a lot about breathing and
Mm.
controlling the breath, and how to, when you're feeling anxious, right, how to breathe and get your back into center. So I really am curious. I really would love to know, like, how, and I don't know if it's a universal theme across yoga people or if it's just something that you teach, but give us one or two insights on the breath work, and how that helps keep us center, how it helps individuals get through and break through that upper limit.
For sure. For me, I did not start showing up on my yoga mat 100% until I started focusing on my breath. That is and continues to be my anchor. So for me, that is what grounds me. It is what centers me. It is what always brings me back to the present moment. So I always start a class by saying, let's just notice your breath. Maybe it's the first time today that you're noticing it. What is the quality of your breath, the depth of your breath? Are your inhales long? Are they short? Just noticing, and that instantly brings their mind outside of that room into this space, noticing right now what's present in your body. So anytime that I feel anxious, or I see a friend feeling anxious or overwhelmed, it's so important to pause, just notice at first your breath, and then go deeper with it. So nice deep inhales. I always say, imagine your belly filling up like a balloon, and then your breath travels up into your rib cage. It lifts your heart, and then open the mouth, let it go in reverse. Release your heart, contract your rib cage, release your belly. And that wave, almost imagine like an ocean wave, like pulling into shore on the inhale, letting it go on the exhale, will instantly take someone out of that fight or flight mode and taps into that sympathetic nervous system and brings you back to the present moment. It truly is a grounding exercise. You can do it anytime in your day. You can do it when you're driving and you're feeling frustrated with traffic. You can do it at work, sitting at your desk, anywhere. 2 minutes of your day, sitting down and really focusing on that and letting it be a tool, but also your anchor, keeping you grounded when you feel like you're kind of flying, in all different directions.
Guys, listen, you'd be lying to yourself as if you said you weren't actually doing the breathing techniques as as Jody was telling you. I was. She said it and I'm like, oh, let me try this. And then the imagery of this ocean wave, I'm like, oh,
Right.
that's fantastic. Okay, so how then do you take what you preach on the mat, what you do on the mat? How do you take that and apply that to your everyday habits? How has it
Mhm.
become a habit for you? Because listen, it's not just, hey, when I go to the mat, this is what I do. When I leave, I basically dump everything and forget everything.
Mhm.
How do
Mhm.
you create habits? How have you created? Now, look, guys, she's been doing this for well over 10 years. Okay. So, and habits take time, 30 days. It takes 30 days to create a good
Yeah.
habit. It takes an additional 60 days to keep that habit going.
Yeah.
So, how then have you structured your day around this habit of breath work and being kind to yourself?
Yeah. It's a practice. I mean, that's why it's called a yoga practice, right? We never perfect it. We never master it. We're constantly working on it. But each time you go back to it, it's kind of like strengthening this muscle of mindfulness. So, I hear so often from people, I can never meditate. I sit there for 30 seconds and my mind is already way down the road, and that's normal. But every time you bring that focus back to your breath and to how you're feeling and to the present moment, it's like strengthening that muscle. So it has taken time for me. It has taken time for me to choose how I react to something that might be stressful or overwhelming. We're human. Our natural response is to, oh my God, like freak out and panic and your heart rate increases. But then taking a step back, for me, it's been easy to notice, gosh, I don't like the way that physically feels in my body, right? Like I feel tense. I feel everything tense up. I get hot. Like I feel nervous. My stomach might hurt. I don't like the way that that's showing up in my body. So what can I do to eliminate that feeling, And so I automatically will also think about like how do I want my day to look today when I wake up? Do I want to step out of bed and have be an anxious, crazy, chaotic day? Or do I want to step out of bed and say, all right, just for today, my intention is that things go smoothly and that everyone is healthy and gets where they need to go. And, we have a lot of moving pieces, but that's something we also do is set an intention at the beginning of every yoga class. And you can do the exact same thing for your day. And so much revolves around just your mindset. So if you wake up in the morning and know you have a full day, but you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to have a good day. This is going to be a successful day. I'm going to try to remain calm as much as possible, recognize what's in my control, recognize what's out of my control, and go into it with that mindset. That alone is just profound and has so much power over what kind of day you're going to have. And then throughout your day, if you start feeling things creep up or you're kind of losing your patience or losing your balance, take 2 minutes, sit down, practice your breath work. A lot of times too, I will write. I keep a gratitude journal and I don't write in it the same time every day, but if I feel like a lot of things are going wrong in my day, I'll stop and I'll open it up and maybe write 5 things that I am grateful for today. Maybe it's something as simple as the sun is shining today. I'm grateful for my dogs because I love taking them on walks, whatever it may be. Little things that really help pull your focus back to realizing, like, it's not so bad. Like, there's still a lot I got going on for me, right?
Yep.
And so it's a practice. And maybe it's starting with one thing that you're implementing into your day. So maybe that's focusing on your breath for 2 minutes every day. Maybe it's writing one thing down a day that you're grateful for. Maybe it's catching yourself if you start feeling like your thoughts are kind of going into a negative tone, noticing it. That's a great improvement, just noticing it so that you can stop it. But it's a practice for sure. I am not positive 100% of the time, 24/7, but recognizing when I feel like I'm derailing is all part of that practice. And then you're able to stop it and change course and do something about it.
Oh, guys, at this part of the show, I'm upstairs and I want to rip my shirt off and jump out my window and scream as loud as I can. She said, of all of that, what she was saying is so profound. But did you catch? She said 2 minutes. If you take to 120 seconds
Yeah.
to just breathe,
Mhm.
there's 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
She's saying take 2 minutes to center yourself on simply breathing, and it will change. It can change the entire trajectory of that day.
Mhm. Yeah.
Go
it
back and
truly-
play the part where she was teaching you how to breathe. Because like, how do you breathe? Go back and play it.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh, dang it. That's so good.
And the amazing part of it is the more you practice that and you realize how good you feel after 2 minutes, then you're like, I think I want to try this for 3 minutes. I think I want to try this for 4 minutes. Like, if this is how good I feel from just concentrating on my breath for 2 minutes, like, this is amazing, right? And that's how you eventually develop a practice of meditation or whatever that looks like for you. But yeah, it's first just noticing what's happening in your body when you start to feel that stress, noticing it and recognizing it and choosing to do something about it before it completely derails you for your day. You know, we have choices. It's so much easier to take the road that feels like it's more natural and organic versus forcing something. So notice how that's showing up in your body and know you have choices. You know, yes, bad things are going to happen, but you have power in your response to it for sure.
You know what we're gonna get, right, Jody? You know, people are gonna be like, well, yeah, but Jody, you grew up easy life, 3 kids, parents loving, loving parents. You probably grew up and they already have this conception of how you grew up. But that's not really the case. That's not really the case. So guys, we're going to touch on a subject it's pretty sensitive, but we're going to do it with class. We're going to do it with being humble about this, because it affects millions of people around the globe. So Jody, why take us down one of the reasons why you got into just go into the yoga? What was that time in your life? What was that like? Bring us into that space a little bit to help everybody understand that this truly was life-saving for you.
Yeah. So I always had anxiety growing up. I think I first started recognizing it probably in middle school. And at that time, there wasn't necessarily a term for it. I don't think my parents really knew what to do when I said I just didn't feel right or something felt off. And so I pretty much grew up with that anxiety undiagnosed. And as an adult, started kind of recognizing, I don't want to feel like this all the time. This is tiring. This is a hard way to live. And I knew that for me, moving my body was always a way that helped to calm me down. Like, I love to run and I love to exercise. And that was a part of the reason for getting into fitness in the first time in the beginning. But I had heard about yoga and knew that there were also all of these mental benefits to it, and overall benefits way outnumbered the physical benefits. And so I think initially that's probably why I was also so drawn to it. And for me, it is a big piece of managing my mental health. Like, I don't know that I could survive without it in a healthy way. I rely on it in much for my emotional health and my mental health as I do for my physical health, probably even more so. And the physical benefits are just kind of a perk at this point. But my parents were divorced when I was in middle school, and that's really when that anxiety first set in. And I knew that I was 30 years old before I addressed it, and that's a long time to live with anxiety and feeling that and dealing with that. And so, any tools I have now in my toolbox to kind of help manage that mean the world to me. It's survival for me.
Guys, listen, go back. She said a lot of things. We're going to ask more questions because I know you guys are all curious, because I am as well. But she said something that is very, very, very on point. She was 30 years old when she started to say enough is enough. She was middle school, 12 years old, right? Middle school kids are right around that 12-year-old. Well, here in Utah, I mean, my daughter's 10. So, and she started quote unquote middle school. That's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade where they go, or 6th and 7th, they'll call quote unquote middle school. Okay. So do the simple math, right? 30 minus 12, that'll tell you how long she went with this what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
Waking up feeling like, why get out of bed?
Mhm.
Why married with kids,
Yeah.
right? You're, as a husband, he's probably like, man, like, okay, let me just help take that stress, right? Because it's stress. You don't know what it is. He's trying to figure it out, child. Oh, let me relieve it. Your kids just want to be kids and play and laugh. And you're like, no, 30 years old. And she's finally like, enough is enough. Now, that's not a knock on her, but she just didn't know what to do. A
Yeah.
lot of us, specifically, a lot of us think to ourselves, we don't know what to do. And confused people do nothing. And you were
Yes.
just confused on why your body was acting, your mental state was the way it is.
Yeah.
But holy crap, people, that's huge.
Yeah.
What, when your parents got divorced, because I know this is, that's a big, it's a traumatic event in anyone's, I was, I was a divorced dad, had 4 kids. My wife, she was divorced. She had 6 kids. I mean, these kids, they go through so much at that age. Was there any unhealthy boundaries or any unhealthy, you know, daily functions that you created for yourself because you just didn't know how to deal with what the trauma that you went through, because it is traumatic for a lot of people.
Mhm.
And what was that like? And are you able to recognize, that was really, as you said it, that's really when the anxiety kicked in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think when I was 12 years old, and for me, that was the first time any significant change had happened in my life. So, and that was big. So my family, as I knew it, was changing in a big way. And for the first time, I think I really felt this lack of security in my life. And that for me meant like, gosh, if this can happen, something else really bad could happen. And what's next? What's next that's going to happen that is so bad? So that fear more instilled a fear in me, which kind of translated into anxiety. And I think that as I got older and didn't deal with that, and then started dating, and I had this constant fear that someone was going to leave me. It was going to end. Like there was nothing was going to be permanent. And it wasn't until really, yeah, into my early adult life, I started to see a therapist and talked through it with her, and then really was actually diagnosed with anxiety. And it is sad, like you said, like that's a lot of years to live with that. And I think what's so heartbreaking about it, and when I hear people today talk about living with it and not necessarily managing it, is that it's exhausting. It's an exhausting way to live. And I spent so many years trying to make it go away or hiding it and acting like I was fine when inside I really felt terrible and exhausted all of the time. And you don't have to live like that. You don't, it is dealing with anxiety is no different than dealing with diabetes or dealing with any other health issue. And I wanted to be sure that, when I got married and had kids, I would be able to show up as my best self for my kids. And I didn't want to have to worry about waking up one morning and not being able to get out of bed if I had people relying on me. And so the yoga was just another piece of that. I kind of call it my toolbox, and that's just another piece of it for me. And all of these things come together, whether it's talking to a therapist or medication or physical exercise, whatever it may be, it's that toolbox that helps to keep me grounded and in proof that you can have anxiety and manage it and live with it and still live a really balanced life.
I have to say this, thank you for being that open. We all love you because you're still here and you're able to share with soon to be millions of people this journey that you've taken over the years in the course of your life. Guys, listen, it's not about being ashamed. It's not about, there's something has to be wrong with me. That's not what, listen to what Jody's saying. Jody's saying that recognizing how your body is feeling, recognizing the mental part of it. And it's hard, it's difficult man, look, when I found myself a single dad, father of four, have four kids at my house, and you know, you wake up every day and you're like, man, I need a break. I need a break. Some point there's got to be a break, right? And you do what you can to just live. I mean, it's not even, I mean, really not even live. It's just get through the motions.
Yeah.
And so you can go back to bed. Really, I mean, that's what it's about. And
Yeah.
hearing that, first of all, we all love you for sharing that. We all love you because you've actively chose to be a voice as much as you don't think, but you've been a mouthpiece and a voice to millions of people saying, look, get help. If you need it, do it. Go to counseling. So
Yes.
what? Counseling is fantastic. She said also that she has now, it's another tool in her toolbox.
Yeah.
Anybody who's been to counseling knows that you develop tools and you're given tools,
Yeah.
right, to help you. Maybe you do take medication. Okay. So what? Like, don't look at it as something is wrong. It's another tool to get me better.
Yeah.
And then the physical aspect, training the mind and the body to move and push forward.
Yes. Yeah.
We could stop, but we won't. That was fantastic. I absolutely, man, that was so good. That was so good. Take us through the healing journey then, because now we're 30. You're married. You're a young mom of three young kids. Look, 30 is still young. I don't care. 40 is still young. I'm 40. I'll be 45 this year. It's still super, super young. So now that you have found, you get into yoga, you start this journey, what do you instantly start to notice a change? Do you start this feel like I'm healing inside mentally and emotionally? And if so, how does that now allow you to have the capacity to love others? Because now you're actually loving yourself.
Yeah, sure. It didn't happen overnight. It's a very long, slow process. For a while, like I said, I was going to yoga classes just for the physical benefit of it. I wasn't even open to what more it could do for me at that point. But I think it's a practice. So the more I went and the more I was around sort of like-minded people who were already living this lifestyle on and off the mat, the more I started just absorbing from these people, and the more I wanted to tune in and hear what they had to say. And I would look at them, these teachers standing at the front of the room, and think, gosh, they just seem like so calm and so grounded and so fit and so happy. And how do you do that? How do you do that? I know that they have real lives outside of the studio. And so I think it was small, and just starting by noticing what was going on with me, like noticing my physical reactions, and then noticing how I felt in certain situations or after a class, or just noticing how I was feeling more instead of pushing it down or moving on to the next thing. Just kind of pausing and learning that pause was really important for me to kind of check in and take inventory and see what needed to shift or change, and being able to, like I said, be the best mom that I could for my kids, and being 100% for them. But then also realizing, as they've gotten older, that it's okay to let them know if I'm not at 100% today. They are very well aware of the fact how often I am leaving to teach a class or going to a class, and they know the importance of it to me. And I'm now trying to sort of pass that on to them without pushing it on to them. But they notice when I am positive, and they notice when I am not reacting in a volatile way, and they notice when I'm I'm meditating sign on my doorknob in my bedroom. It means don't bother mom, she's grounding herself. So just to be able to pay that forward to any students that come to my yoga class, and then my own kids is huge for me. It helps to keep me on point with my own practice and where I'm going, and hold me accountable, but also knowing I can affect someone else in that way. I mean, whether it's the tiniest of things. I'll have a student come to me at the end of class and say, wow, that one thing you said really stuck with me, and I remember that from last week. Or just the tiniest of things, and then kind of always remaining and that role of student when I'm in someone else's class. I just absorb it so much and think to myself, gosh, how can I apply this to my day or this difficult situation I have coming up? So it's ongoing. It never stops. I keep a journal that I'm constantly writing thoughts that I hear or ideas down, and it's never, there's no end, right? Like you can just keep improving and improving and improving.